You know that trip you take to work every morning? The one you barely even think about? Well, it turns out it could have a huge impact on your long-term health. A brand new study is revealing this really surprising link between our daily travel and, our well-being. So let's dive in. Okay, so let me just ask you this straight up. Is your daily commute helping you or is it hurting you? I mean, we all have to get from point A to point B, right? The real question is, what's that journey actually doing to our bodies along the way?
So to really get why this is such a big deal, we gotta zoom out for a second. We need to look at this global problem, our collective lack of movement. Seriously, we're living more and more sedentary lives, and it's creating a massive public health crisis.
And here's what's wild, just how long this has been a problem. I mean, look at this data. It stretches all the way from 2008 to 2016, and it shows that way under 30% of adults in the US were hitting the recommended guidelines for physical activity. That's a really stubborn trend, and it has some very, very serious consequences.
And those consequences? They come with a price tag, a massive one. We're talking about worldwide healthcare costs, both direct and indirect, linked to just not moving enough. It's hit a staggering $53.8 billion, and that's every single year. So yeah, this isn't just a health issue, it's a huge economic one too.
Okay, so what is all this inactivity actually doing to us? Well, it's a major factor in nearly a third of ischemic heart disease cases. That's a condition where your heart's arteries get all narrowed. And it's tied to over a quarter of all diabetes cases, plus it's strongly linked to several types of cancer and bone diseases like osteoporosis. And the crazy part? These are diseases we actually have the power to prevent. Which, brings us right back to our daily journey. If not moving enough is the problem, could our commute, something we're already doing every single day, actually be part of the solution? I mean, think about it. For so many of us, the commute is just passive time, right? You're stuck in a car, sitting on a bus. But what if we could totally transform that? What if we could turn that routine trip into a consistent source of good, beneficial physical activity? Researchers really wanted to find out, but first they had a big problem to solve. They needed a much better way to measure it all. You see, for years, the biggest hurdle was just getting good, accurate data. The old school methods, like travel diaries or surveys, they all rely on people's memory, which, let's be honest, is often pretty fuzzy and not super accurate. So, to really understand the health impact of travel, researchers needed a whole new way of doing things, a system that could automatically and objectively track our movement with incredible precision. And that need for better data is what led to the creation of this really innovative new tool. It's a platform with a pretty great acronym, actually, PASTA. Yup, PASTA. It stands for Physical Activity through Smart Travel Activity. And its whole purpose is simple, but it's incredibly powerful. To use the tech we're all already carrying around, our smartphones, our wearables, to automatically measure the real health impact of how we choose to get from place to place. So, here's the breakdown of how it works. The PASTA system brings together two key pieces of tech. First up, there's a custom smartphone app that uses GPS to track your location and movement. And second, it pairs with a commercial fitness tracker, like a Fitbit, to capture all that biometric data, your heart rate, and so on. Put them together and you get this incredibly rich, second-by-second picture of your activity. Okay, but how does the system know if you're actually on a trip versus just, say, hanging out at the office? Well, it uses this really clever technique called geohash clustering. The easiest way to think about it is like drawing a digital grid all over a map. By grouping your GPS points inside these little grid squares, the system can automatically and super intelligently figure out the difference between when you're stationary, what it calls an activity, and when you're actually moving between places, a trip. All right, so this is how the whole thing comes together. You've got the raw data, your location from the phone, your heart rate from the Fitbit, flowing into the system. Then, that clever geohash clustering gets to work, figuring out if you've stayed in one spot long enough to be called an activity. If the answer is yes, it predicts what kind of place you're at. If the answer is no, it gets labeled a trip, and the system starts figuring out how you are traveling. So the team built this incredibly powerful new tool. They rolled it out with 120 participants in Michigan and Texas, and they just started collecting tons of data. And the results? Well, they were absolutely fascinating. Check this out. This is a snapshot of one person's actual day, captured by the PASTA system. On the left, you can see how it automatically broke everything down. A trip, then some time at church, another trip to the pharmacy, you get the idea. And on the right, you've got the map showing the route. And for every single one of those segments, the system logged super detailed physical activity metrics. It's just an incredibly granular view of someone's day. Now, one of the biggest tests was, could the machine learning actually figure out how people were traveling? And it turns out it was remarkably good at it, especially when it came to active transport. I mean, the system correctly identified walking over 97% of the time, and biking over 90% accuracy. It did have a bit of a tougher time with buses. It would sometimes get them confused with cars, but for the non-motorized stuff, the accuracy was just excellent.
But, one of the biggest innovations to come out of this whole thing was a brand new metric they developed. They called it the Physical Activity Minute, or PAM for short. Now, this is really key. Unlike all those generic estimates that kind of treat everyone the same, PAM is completely personalized. It uses your specific heart rate data to calculate the true intensity of your effort. It's basically the difference between a rough guess and a super precise measurement of the actual health benefit you're getting from an activity.
So what does all this really mean in the real world? Because this isn't just some academic exercise, right? This data has some profound implications for how we actually design our cities and our communities. The researchers themselves really said it best. The entire point of this work is to give communities the hard information they need to understand the real health consequences of how we all get around. It's all about empowering better choices, not just for us as individuals, but for our cities as a whole. And this, right here, is the real game changer. For the very first time, we can move beyond just stories and feelings and provide hard, objective data. Now, city planners can actually quantify the health return on investment for building a new bike lane or just improving a sidewalk. And for us as individuals, we can start to see the direct, measurable health impact of choosing to walk to the store instead of hopping in the car. That is a really powerful shift.
Which really just leaves us with one final and I think really important question to think about. This research gives us the tools to measure the health of our travel choices. So, what would happen if we started using that knowledge? If we started building communities that are actually designed for people, not just for cars? Just imagine how much healthier and maybe even happier we could all be.